Because something's going to pop up at SEC Media Days live in Dallas at the Omni like this handsome piece of work. It's Peter Burns of the SEC
I
Network.
need to put that on my SEC Network thing instead of saying like network hands. A handsome piece of work. Like my
Handsome-
mom would be so proud. Mom, I made it. That's what
it.
Chad called me. We're good.
Handsome piece of work. We've had you on the show before, and we love talking to you. So how are we doing? We are here. We are talking and recording this right before Texas goes. So we'll get to that in a second. But so far, SEC Media Days with 2 new members. What have you made of 16 strong?
It's a different vibe, right? So I mean, we've had it, and I've been the anchor for the SEC Network for a decade now, and so you always knew kind of the run of the teams that were going to be here, the storylines. But there's the vibes are different this year because of 3 different reasons. One, 12-team playoff, right? I mean, that expands the field for everybody, not only just in the SEC. That's part of it. Also, not having an East and West division. We used to talk about things kind of in a siloed way of like there's an SEC East who could be the 1, 2, 3 teams in the East and who could be the 1, 3 teams in the West. We don't have that. It's all just one conference now. And then, of course, the big thing is the 2 new teams. And let's be honest with you, it's about Texas coming. I mean, that's what the big thing is. And I understand, and Oklahoma has unbelievable pedigree. I think they're going to have a pretty good team. But everybody wants to talk about Texas. When I go up and down Media Row, the first question I'm asked is really not about Alabama. It's really not asked about Georgia, who almost should have won probably 3 straight national champions. It's what's Sark going to do, and what's Texas? Are they ready? Are they SEC ready at this point?
That's interesting. And because that really tells us we've been wondering that national vibe of just how much discussion is there about Texas. It does feel like there's a lot of it. So for you, as you get ready to check out Sark and the players, we've seen the players already milling around here a little bit. We got to talk to Kelvin Banks earlier today. What do you think the vibe's going to be around Sark? If you're, what's the message going to be from Sark, and what do you think the media wants to know from him?
I think they want to know, are you SEC ready? And I think if you ask that question to Sark right after the Arkansas game in 2021, he's like, hell no. I mean, I talked to him that in the spring game and when I was down there for Longhorn Network stuff, and I think, people in that building understood when Arkansas came in there and ran it for 300 yards, you're like, this is not SEC ready, right? Arkansas fans, they were screaming SEC, SEC. There was a certain pride that came along with like, hey, we know you're Texas, but guess what we just did to you? We punked you. And I think ultimately that ended up being a great lesson for Sark and everybody else to understand that, it's such a line of scrimmage league. And I know that's such cliche stuff, but truly it is. And I don't expect anything different from Sark. He's quiet, he's humble. And I think he's going to address it, that everyone's going to come after us. But everybody's been coming after Texas for, 100 years now.
Right.
I mean, that's heavy as the head that wears at least the kind of brand crown. Now it's just a matter of, do they back it up like they did last year?
I've been really impressed with all these players in the tailored suits and with the jewelry, but these quarterbacks specifically have presented themselves really, really well. What do you expect from Quinn Ewers? There's been discussion about him and vocal leadership. They want even more, they want more of it from him. It's not his natural thing. What do you expect from Quinn today?
It was funny as I just got out of an interview where Quinn was the interview before me.
Okay.
And so I got to sit in on it, and I'm like, all right. And I've talked to Quinn a little bit in just kind of one-off interviews. It's just this quiet confidence about him to where you're right. He's not he's not a Tim Tebow, give this whole speech and we're going to rally this Braveheart crowd around him like Mel Gibson. He's more like chill. And honestly, that almost might be the perfect persona for this team coming into the SEC. Like never too high, never too low. Like, let's just accomplish it. And he's been there before. So, I was impressed. What I was really impressed with is when I went down there for the spring game, Chad, he throws the one interception. Sark pulls him like he was going to do, and then Arch goes off for 19 million touchdowns, right?
Right.
So me and the Longhorn Network guys are sitting there going, all right, is this a thing? Like the Arch Quinn thing? And so I went down back on the field, and I wanted to watch Quinn the whole time. And Quinn seemed so unfazed that it was like, you're going to talk about it online. You'll talk about it on, on Twitter, on everywhere. It ain't a thing. Like I'm like, there was such a confident going, I know I'm the dude. I'm not worried. And I know that there's 45 people waiting to get an autograph from Arch Manning. And nobody's kind of milling around me, I really don't care. Like, so I like that kind of confident in your own abilities and where you're at in your life. I think that bodes well.
Because last year at the last Big 12 media days, there was we were watching Quinn to see how he would react to things, and then there was the moment from that Sugar Bowl this year from the playoff where they took the picture of Quinn looking over his shoulder at all those people talking to Arch.
Yeah.
You're telling me deep down he's handling it all in stride.
Yeah, I mean, I think he knows, listen, I could worry about this. I could worry what people say. All I can do is control what I can control. And again, I hate that cliche from a lot of people, but for Quinn's mindset, that's what you kind of want to do. Like, you want to make sure that, hey, if I'm good and I go up there to Michigan and I throw it for 275 and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, nobody's replacing me. Like, I'm the one who controls this, right? Like, if I play well and the team plays well and I'm a good leader, well, Arch is going to have his time. And I'm a firm believer of that's why Arch ended up choosing Texas. It was not because you need to win this recruiting battle or you need to get Arch in here for this and that. I think it was because the Manning family knew that they would be within good hands for Arch to get stronger, bigger, faster. And I already saw that. So it's kind of a throwback of how Peyton was, how even Eli were in their early career, where they didn't play a ton as a freshman, if at all. And all of a sudden they got a little bit more. And then by the third year, they had a game plan. It worked well for Peyton. It worked well for Eli. Why the hell wouldn't it work for Arch at this point?
Real quick, let me hit the 2 big rivals for Texas. We already heard from OU. We're going to hear from A&M. Yeah. Talk to me about the Sooners first in their first year here. What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, the Sooners to me are such an X factor because I think defensively they're going to be really sound. Brent Venables, I remember what he did over at Clemson. I remember talking to him at Clemson one year. I go there and, they had the slide down in the practice facility and stuff like that. And I asked Brent, I go, what, are you ever going to be a head coach? And he's like, I make $2 million a year and I get to coach ball. He's like, Dabo doesn't coach ball anymore. Dabo's a CEO and speaker and stuff like that. So is he there? Is he ready to be a head coach? We've seen a little bit of success. I don't know what the offense is going to look like. There's an X factor. I still don't think there's more pressure on anybody. Not Kalen DeBoer, not Kirby Smart, not Lane Kiffin, anybody, more so than Mike Elko in this conference. And the reason why I say that is because they've had a decade-plus, head start over Texas in this conference and the money that comes along with it and the notoriety and knowing all the game plans and knowing the fans and all of that. Are they really going to let Texas zip by them in the first year? And if all of a sudden you got Quinn, you got Sark, and at the 40 acres is going wild, and Schultz's Beer Garden is going crazy because they go into your house and beat you by 2 touchdowns, that's hard to recover. That's hard to recover right now. And so I think there's a lot of pressure on Elko. And now, mind you, I think Elko's squad is pretty damn good this year.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. That's a team that could win 9 or 10 games. Connor Wegman's legit if he can stay healthy.
So if you could go to the window in Vegas and bet on Sooners or Aggies more wins, you go Aggies?
I'd probably put Aggies on that point. But
okay.
I think it's one wins 9, one wins 8. I think both of them end up having good seasons. And if I'm going to the window, I'm probably taking the over of 10.5 wins for Texas right now.
Gotcha. I know you're a busy man. I'll let you go, but I'll ask you this. Coach Saban says it's Texas and Georgia. You agree?
I mean, it's Coach Saban. It's like E.F. Hutton when people talk. Like, that's just like God has come down from the things, and he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, if you say it, it's funny because he's now a coworker of ours, so it's just so weird. Seeing the greatest coach in the history of the game, and we're having coffee in the morning, and I'm like, hey, coach. And then for him to be like, hey, Peter, I'm like, that was awesome. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, what has that been like? It's funny.
Wild.
When I saw you, I just talked to Dusty Dvoracek, and I'm talking to these other people, and I'm thinking, man, what is it like where Nick Saban is now your coworker, and he's in a meeting that you're in, and what can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, because everybody waits to see what he has to say. And that's the same thing it was at SEC coach meetings and stuff like that. Yeah. You wait until the Godfather says something. It was, he told the story about how the first day down here, he comes down, he doesn't have his credential, and they wouldn't let him in. So he had to go walk up, and he's like, in 17 years, I had to wear a credential.
So this was legit.
This was legit. Yeah, the first day he comes down to work with us at ESPN, and he's almost late for his first show because he had to go upstairs to go get his credential. And he's like, I didn't know. And Kirby gave him hell about that.
Yeah.
Kirby just said, hey, I don't know about you, but I'd have to wear a credential today. And the second thing that was kind of funny is, we got like a little green room for ESPN where we'll eat and have meetings and stuff like that. Well, it was kind of busy around lunchtime. I go in there, I fix a plate or whatever, and people have their laptops and stuff out. So I just take this laptop and this phone. Nobody was sitting there. I move it, their notes or whatever. I kind of put it to the side, and everybody looks at me. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What's up?" And they're like, "That's Coach Saban stuff."
You touched
and
his
I was
stuff.
like, "Well, I'm fired now." That was great. Like, it was a good run for me, a decade.
You could feel the title, Peter's last day. Over your
It's a
head.
hell of a way to go out. What happened? Burns touched Saban's cell phone,
Ooh,
and that was it.
Don't do it.
But I tell you what, he looks at a rundown like he would the script for the national championship game. Like that's when you know what greatness looks like, because it could be coaching college football, gardening, television, radio. He's so prepared. And when you see that in live, it might be a 3-minute deal, and it doesn't matter. He's preparing for it like it is his Super Bowl. That's when you realize, man, there's different levels to it, and I ain't on that level yet.
Yeah, there you go. All right, real quick, Texas, Georgia, and Austin, obviously a huge game. We talked about OU. We talked about A&M.
Yeah.
Is there, and obviously we're focusing on Texas here, but is there another team in this conference that you're just kind of thinking, man, look out for blank?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss obviously is the easy answer, but I'll go with Missouri. I'm really intrigued to see what Missouri can do. Luther Burden III is, I think, the best wide receiver in the country. And what's weird, because normally Eli Drinkwitz is kind of this, I wouldn't say class clown, but he's always having kind of fun and giving kind of quirky deal. He was crickets.
He really was.
He was kind of monotonous, and that is not him. And that's when I realized, and I pulled him to the side. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, we're really good. Like, that's like, he doesn't want to say anything this week to kind of derail the momentum they have. And that's, one of two things. These coaches sometimes don't talk about it because they're nervous about their team not being good. And then there's other times where coaches don't want to say anything because they're like, I don't want to say anything dumb because we're going to be really, really solid.
Doesn't want to be a distraction.
And I think that's how Drink is this year.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's Peter Burns, SEC Network. Brother, I know you got a lot of stuff to do. Thank you, as always, for making time for us. Let's catch up with you maybe before, season kicks off.
Anytime
things roll through.
Listen, I want to go ahead to the 512, man. I lived in Texas for 20 years. So anytime I get to come back to Austin, my liver doesn't like when I come back. But I enjoy it.
That's all right. Well, you can give that liver a workout. It'll be an SEC liver workout in Austin now.
Yeah, I'm just doing show prep now. Yeah, I can write it off.
Now it's show prep. Peter Burns, thank you, brother.
Thanks, buddy.
SEC Network, Peter Burns, you're going to check him out all season long. Keep it right here. Keep your notifications to Orangebloods Live. You never know what's going to happen. SEC Media Days,